initial reaction to reading this kind of genre because we've never read a book like this before. Anybody?
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
we had this conversation before Dina arrived, and we've read a variety of books in the book club, from biographies to thrillers to spiritual, but not as much with the spiritual. And we were talking about maybe introducing something on the level of your book, even beyond. But not everybody's interested in that, and that sometimes becomes very, very personal. That I think that it was a nice break for a change to have something where you kind of had to reflect and go back into your own self and kind of compare it to what you're going through in your life. So I thank you for it. It was a nice fresh break for us from our normal reading.
I think the book got me thinking again about myself. I'm much older than you are, much older. I've had a lot of experiences, good and bad. People who know me know that I'm extremely positive. I try very hard to be other positive. But I've had some, serious things happen to me that have backed me, put me back into sort of, not depression, but a thoughtful period where I've been sad. And when I've had to work my way through. I have many examples. I'm not going to, I don't really, I can share them, but everybody here, almost everyone but you, because I don't really know you, they're very well aware, of what my life is like. But I also have the most fantastic support system. I have the most delightful husband who I've been married to for 49 years. And he has been there for me through all of it. But I do think that you personally have to get through a lot of things yourself. And this is what I felt, this is what I got out of the book. And that's fantastic because it gets me thinking again about my life and moving forward and being positive and working on, being happy. Thank you.
I found your descriptions of the seasons very interesting, and I felt like, for me, a season didn't, take a long period of time. Sometimes I flipped back and forth from one season to the other. That
I agree.
I would
I agree.
be, like I obviously ecstatic. Everybody knows I'm going to be a grandma, and I'm ecstatic
Yes.
about that. But
Yes.
but yet, by the same token, my husband is going through some health issues, and there's stresses around the holidays. So as much as that's something that I keep, focusing on and wanting that to be in the forefront, there are still other things that are going on. So I feel like the seasons for me don't, just flow from one to the other, but rather, kind of go back and forth. But one of the things that struck me, you talked about being introspective or meditating, thinking about it, but prayer. Prayer is the one thing in my life that when I'm going through a difficult time or I have friends that's the one thing that I take the time to do. And that's, again, a personal thing for me. But, I found, much of what you said that I could relate to. But with like you say, that we've been through many things, that
Yes,
our
that's
lives,
right.
in our late 60s, 70s, that the ebb and flow of it as we go along, is something that we all deal with. And I think if you're a younger person, that this book would even be more helpful because it's, you kind of think everything is wonderful and you deserve everything right away. That it's you got to take the good with the bad, but you have to learn how to accept everything and get from one, we'll call it season, to the other.
But that, that's why the title was wonderful, The Seasons. Yeah, I just love it because that's really, when you look at your life, that's really what it is. If you live long enough and had the wisdom to get through what you had to go through, good, bad, indifferent.
But yet we're saying that, you have to be older to appreciate this. Dina's not older, and she wrote this book. So,
But Dina went through a life-changing situation.
That's correct.
And
But I
she
think
chose
that-
to heal herself
And
through
it
her
led her
writing.
to
Right.
a different person that she didn't know she was.
I never, and I love what I'm hearing. When I hit 30, I saw a shift in what I thought was important. Things that I thought were important weren't important, and things that I thought were unimportant work. So there was a shift in that, in my thinking. And as I began to get closer to 35, and I'm like, wait a second, these things are not, these are things that I kind of put off to the side. I'm like, wait a minute, they're really important to me. And I really, really want this. And so, I was married, and, my ex-husband and I, we had a conversation, and I will always say that I hear of so many horrific divorce stories, and, they're just horrific. And that's how you know people love each other, they respect each other. We were respectful and loved each other enough to say, you know what, let's be honest with each other. Do we want to continue in this manner? These are the things that I would like. These are the things that you would like. And I'm realizing that they're not in line. Right. So let's have a conversation, let's see. We separated, thought about it, took some time, came back, had a conversation, it still hadn't changed. And we said, okay, you know what, let's just move on.
Right.
Because I didn't want to be married for the sake of being married, and neither did he, just to look a certain way. So, as Sue said, that was a huge change. That was a huge change, because that's not what I envisioned. And I'm sure that's not what he envisioned. So I believe that you need to go through a certain set of experiences in order to really, truly understand and appreciate this book. Or I call it a guide, whatever, however I wrote it. I saw that by writing, I never knew I was a writer. I never saw myself as a writer, and I just began to write. And saw that I kept comparing my experience with seasons, and just kept seeing that comparison. But I do agree with you that you do need to have had some type of experience in order to be able to appreciate it.
I just think those first 10 years, I was actually married 10 years by the time
Yes.
I was 30.
Yes.
Almost 10 years. And I think we just basically, my husband and I, when I think about it, we just sort of like grew up together. Mm-hmm. It was a whole different kind of
The world was different when you got
The
married
world
too,
was different
which
too.
also I think impacts on how you react and relate to
Right.
everything and what seasons you go through.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. And I think that also what comes along with the idea of transition is being able to take the time and appreciate the hard times. And, people have a very difficult time looking in the mirror and looking at themselves and seeing things as they are. It's very hard to say, I was wrong. It's very hard to say I was wrong. It's very painful. And then to also say, you know what, I need to take this experience and find out what it means for me, and to actually say, all right. I always say to people, I'm like, okay, I put my big girl drawers on and just, sit at the table and look at this and see what it is for me. I was talking to my mom once. I said there was one point in my life where I was literally on my knees crying, and just everything that I'm looking at, I'm like, well, what I thought wasn't, and what I wanted wasn't there. So I felt like a glass that had been taken and just shattered. And I'm sitting there on the floor. I'm like, I gotta piece this together and figure out what it is. And I began to realize later on, as I'm going through the transition, actually, I didn't even see it till afterwards. And I realized that we continue to go through these things, these experiences that break us down to our finest pieces. Not to crush us, to hurt us, but to humble us and to make us realize there is more to learn. Don't get too big for your britches. Right. But I realized that as I began to piece myself together, I wasn't so focused on putting the gluing and putting everything together. I was more focused on looking at each piece as I began to put it together. I began to realize that, oh, this is shaped like this. I began to learn all my curves, all my edges, everything that made me me. So that when I pieced it together and said, wow, I know it's got cracks, but man, it's beautiful. I took the time to put it together. And since I took time to put it together, it's valuable. Whether somebody else thinks it's valuable, doesn't matter.
Do you feel like now, as you become 40, you're going to start a new cycle of seasons and learn different things? And
I feel I will, because I think that if you don't, you never grow.
Because I think we all go through the seasons.
That's right.
Many
Many times, absolutely,
Many
absolutely.
times.
And
That it's,
you know, like Margaret was saying, it's ever changing. Like I felt like I was in my summer season for a period of months, and I feel like I went through my fall. This is the third time where I've gone through my fall season and was actually aware that it was a fall season. So I don't know how many times I transitioned through it before and just didn't know.
yeah.
Well, most of the time you think summer is something that's just to go out and swim and have fun in the sun.
Exactly, but
The
not
winter's
real.
harsher. But a lot of people do get depressed in the winter.
Correct.
A lot of
A
people.
lot.
I think winter is just simply wearing a coat, I mean, for your cold, I think it's, winter's a nice thing.
You see,
It's a wonderful thing.
it's your
Yeah, I like
mindset.
this.
You're right. I like the way you
Cleanse
said
and-
that. It's
yeah.
just, I just gotta put on a coat. What are
I
you
just
talking
have to put on
about?
a coat, I just
All
like
right.
the winter. I
We
do
have
like
to
it.
go through that
It was
darkness.
summer all year
Yeah.
long.
But you have to go through that darkness in order to appreciate the light.
Absolutely.
You know, and there's been so many things, I mean, but I went through a lot of, different, like, health issues, and I remember saying, I was making a gratitude list as I was going through this,
Yes.
and all the positive things that were coming from all the negative. And that really,
the way
really
you have
helped
to
me
be.
get through this.
That's how you survive.
Well,
And
they
that's-
say
and that's
things
the
that happen
prognosis.
to you are either a blessing or a lesson.
Well, it really depends on how you take it and
Yes.
and how you process it, because I know before I started really becoming aware of this, I was not processing it the same way as I do now. And you talk about your seasons, you talk about your life, when I was younger, and I went through, other issues, it was really hard until I decided at that point that, either I'm gonna sink or swim, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna sink. And that's, that's your life.
Well, I think women today, though, are empowered to be that way. I remember a good friend of mine going through a divorce, and her mother, who, came from Italy, kind of that generation, said to her, okay, you had your life, you got married, you had a kid, all right, now you devote your life to your kid. You had your life, and it's over. And it really, that was that backward thinking of years
Of
ago.
course it was.
And, I'm saying my parents probably thought the same way too. So we're in a better spot today. I think women are just empowered a lot more.
And I tell people, when I wrote this book, I wasn't bashing men. I don't have any negative opinion about men. I think it's awesome that when people have a wonderful, supportive marriage, because I feel like that as a complete and whole person, you attract a complete and whole person. And if you're not, you attract that type as well. So I love when I hear people say, yes, I'm in a successful relationship, whatever that looks like. But more so, I love to hear somebody say, I'm happy. And I think that, not that I think, that's the other reason why I wrote the book. I'm like, you have to be happy in yourself.
That's right.
You have to be happy. So
yourself.
many people, their concept of happiness is conditional on someone else or something else.
Yes.
I'm going to be happy if I lose 10 pounds. I'm going to be happy if I get married.
You'll never have.
And they're never happy because now when you acquire that, well, what else is going to fuel that
You'll
happiness?
never have.
So it has to be something that is within. And that can only happen if you've taken the time to transition and get to know who you are and understand your value and understand your worth.